welcome back to my channel. This is the moment where I get to be super transparent and say I feel like a hot mess express right now. I'm also exceptionally self-conscious because I had a filling appointment this morning and I'm really still not sure like if this half of my face is dead. So if it is and you notice, I guess just drop a comment below and laugh at me because I feel like dental humor should be shared. But today what I wanted to touch on is the fact that my routines have been off all summer. Like, it started with moving in May. And you know, anytime you move, anytime you're in a new environment, I feel like you kind of almost get a free pass on being off on your routines for a while. And then, you know, I got so busy with all of these different things that I had going on. And then my mornings became busier with my day job and with my business. And everything about my morning routines has just been off for months now. And so I feel like a hot mess express. And I wanted to share some of what I've been doing to get back on track. This is kind of a routines reset video. Some of what I've realized wasn't working, why it wasn't working, some of what I'm doing to get back on track. And I'll tell you right now, I am not fully back on track, just being honest. And it's a little bit of what I'm learning about what I need in the mornings along the way. So that is what I wanted to share today. So let's go ahead and get into it. Firstly, I contemplated not even releasing this because, you know, how can I even touch on and talk about the routines and the things I do for stress when my routines are so off? But I actually feel like it's important to talk about it because I think routines and habits and behaviors can actually be one of the many ways that we can start to stress ourselves out, because when we're not being perfect at it, we really get down on ourselves. And I'll be completely honest in saying that's a little bit of what I was running into. I have been really struggling to get my feet back underneath me, so much so that I kind of went back to doing the Miracle Morning, which is really the first thing I ever did to get on track with my routines 7 years ago when I read that book. Hell, I'm even rereading it right now. So this is not a I have it figured out and this is what I do every day video. This is a I'm figuring things out, and these are why I made some of the changes I did. So we're gonna kind of treat today as more of a routines I've been trying, what I've been running into with them, and what's actually working, at least for the moment. So let's start by talking about one of the things that has been consistent, and it's only been a part of my world for about a month now, but oh my God, is it a game changer? Like, I cannot wait to tell you guys more about this and to dive into this more. That was one of the big things I was figuring out in the spring is my sleep and my sleep routines. And one of the investments I decided to make was in an 8 Sleep pod cover. I am going to be telling you guys more about this in the future, and drop comments below if this is something you want to hear more about, because holy shit, has this thing been a game changer. If you are somebody that struggles with temperature when you're sleeping and really getting your body to the right temperature to stay asleep, you need to get, if not this, because it is an investment, something like it, because this was the literal magic pill when it came to my sleep. Now, the key with this, and the reason I'd been running into issues before, has been the fact that I would get to sleep when I wanted to get to sleep, but then my body would be fighting me all night, and I wouldn't actually, like, I'd be in bed for 9 hours and maybe only get 5.5 hours of sleep. And it was really starting to grate on me physically. So getting that 8 Sleep pod cover was a really big deal, a really huge thing, and I'm obsessed with it. So the morning starts at about 6 to 6:30. That start time is really the cornerstone of the routine. But from there, one thing that I have still been consistent with is I wake up every morning and I meditate. I like to do the meditation first thing, and I will fully admit that I do oftentimes fall asleep during the meditation, especially when I'm too lazy and try to do it in bed. Don't do that. If you're gonna do it in bed, at least make sure you're sitting up, prop some pillows underneath you. But the best times are when I get off of my bed and sit on my meditation cushion to actually do my meditation. This is a part of the Miracle Morning as well. The S in the SAVERS acronym that makes up the Miracle Morning is for silence. And really, the Miracle Morning is what I credit to getting me into even just doing meditation. So that is one of the first things that I do. I usually use the Calm app when I do this, and I find it to just be a really powerful stress management tactic, as well as just a way to start my day without so much busy and chaos. Now, this really is where my routine started to vary and started to go off track in the spring. For a period of time, I was really trying to channel my inner Andrew Huberman. I found his podcast in the spring, and I was learning so many things and I was so inspired by his podcast that I basically wanted to have like the perfect Andrew Huberman routine. And more what I kept finding is I just did not have enough time to do it. Like, roughly speaking, and this isn't the exact order that he does things in, but he'll do things like read and drink salted water. He'll go for a walk outside and get that kind of early morning vitamin D and sun exposure. He'll do a 45 to 60 minute workout. He'll take a cold shower. He'll have his Athletic Greens, the AG1. He'll do a caffeine delay so he doesn't have coffee until later. And then he'll do a 90-minute work block. He kind of has this whole routine, and aspirationally, I would love to have that routine. It's kind of the ideal morning routine for me, but the more I tried to do it, the more I found it wasn't a practical morning routine for me, and I was kind of just trying to force something that wasn't working, and it kind of just made me feel like I was failing all the time at this routine I was trying to implement. So I had an epiphany recently, and it was really kind of me finally asking myself a question that I ask my clients a lot, and it's basically this notion of think back to a time when what you're wanting to fix right now was working, and what were you doing when it was working? So for me, I was like, okay, think back to a time where you really had your routines locked in. What were you doing during that time? And honestly, I thought back to when I did the Miracle Morning, and I really had my routines figured out when I was doing the Miracle Morning, because it's just this formula that you can adhere to really easily and that adapts very easily to different amounts of time that you might have to dedicate to your morning routine. And I loved that about the Miracle Morning routine. I did the Miracle Morning for about 2 to 3 years starting in 2017. I ultimately got away from it because I think it started to feel a little bit too formulaic. There were parts of it that I kind of never really jived with, that in and of themselves, they kind of just didn't feel very effective to me, and I'll admit, kind of felt like a waste of time. Pre-burnout coach years. But now that I am struggling again in my routines, it seems like a good formula to get back to because it is so adaptable and it's laid out so nicely. If you're not familiar, the Miracle Morning is a series of 6 steps that they make up the acronym SAVER. SAVER stands for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And it is a really, really handy formula to use to build a morning routine around. It adapts to your time frame and it adapts to you and what you feel like each of those different things should be for you in particular. So in recent weeks, I've been falling back into this. And the biggest reason I like it is it's a nice little structure. It's easy to remember. It fits in all these different time frames. And I'm still able to kind of use some of these good science-based Andrew Huberman routines and habits in conjunction with this other kind of a routine systems. So I still wake up at 6 to 6:30. I still meditate first thing, but then this is where some of the changes have started to come in with the Miracle Morning that I've been really, really enjoying and that have been really, really helping me create calm in the chaos that can sometimes be my life in August. So at first when I started doing the Miracle Morning, and even this time around, I would do the affirmation and visualizations part of the routine by sitting on my couch and kind of listening to YouTube videos or Spotify tracks of affirmations and visualization meditations. I didn't mind this, but what I always ran into with this part of the routine is it always felt like it took too long. And I've always been somebody who I really enjoy the like journaling, reading, exercise parts of the SAVERS acronym and less of the affirmations and visualizations. I honestly think a big part of that is that I haven't spent enough time figuring out what my affirmations are. So TBD, that's going to be on the to-do list. But I wanted to try to experiment with some different ways of doing this because again, I just have such a finite amount of time in the morning. I don't really have the time to spend doing what ultimately ended up being like 30 minutes, sometimes 35 minutes of sitting on my couch, meditating, visualizing, and doing affirmations. So what I've been doing recently that I have been loving is I'll do my meditation, I put on my workout clothes, and I listen to the affirmations and visualizations while I walk around my neighborhood. This is one of my favorite things that I took away from Andrew Huberman's routine is getting very, very early sunlight exposure to help set your circadian rhythms in your day. I love that. I also just love walking in general as a form of exercise and as a form of stress management. So to combine this together with the affirmations and visualizations, it allowed me to do these things, but it allowed me to do them in a way that they in and of themselves didn't take up a ton of time, and I was able to get in a longer walk, which I love. Since I moved, I have been experimenting with different routes and different places to walk in my neighborhood. I don't necessarily go to the waterfront every single day like I used to, which I'm okay with actually. I think it's teaching me more about the area I live in, and it's kind of fun to treat those waterfront walks as more like a treat on really, really nice days, which admittedly we've had a lot of recently. But perhaps the biggest reason why I like to do this is I can't always reliably get my workout in first thing in the morning, but this still gives me that little bit of physical activity to kind of boost my mood, boost my energy, and really get my day started in a way that I really like and that feels really good. In a lot of ways, I kind of feel like I'm killing 3 birds at once. 3 birds with 1 stone. Affirmations, visualization, and exercise all in one fell swoop, and it feels really good to do. Then when I get back, what I usually do is I usually grab my Kindle and I grab my iPad and I go upstairs to the rooftop. At my old apartment, I had an outdoor space. I don't at my new apartment, but in a lot of ways, I kind of like not having to maintain my own outdoor space. I like being able to jog on up to the roof, which has a beautiful view of both the bay and of Mount Rainier. I tend to spend about 15 minutes journaling and doing kind of my Notion morning check-in, and then about 15 to 20 minutes reading. At this point in my day, that is really the end of the morning routine stress and burnout prevention routines. And I do think about just about every aspect of this is really for physical self-care, for stress management, for burnout prevention. I think anything you do that is giving you a pause from your day, pouring into you as opposed to pouring into to-dos and tasks, is in essence burnout and stress management tactics. So at this point in the day, that's really when I switch gears and when my schedule really starts to vary. If I still have time in the morning, I do like to try to get my workout in. The longer I wait, the more I tend to get caught up in like the to-dos and all of the tasks of the day. So if I can get it done right after my walk or close to it, that is preferable. Then I like to do my cold shower. Cold exposure is actually a really, really good stress resilience building tactic, and I'm not about to do ice baths, and I don't have like a cold plunge. And admittedly, I am not very mentally tough. So how I tend to do my cold shower is I tend to step into the nice hot shower, do my thing, and then as I am leaving the shower, as I'm wrapping up, that's when I'll crank it to the cold and I'll just sit there in the cold water for as long as I can. We actually just had a heat wave here in the Seattle area, and I'm not gonna lie, the cold shower actually felt pretty damn good when it was like 99 outside, and FYI, a lot of us in the Seattle area don't have AC, so it was hot. After showering, it's time for some food. At this point, I've probably been up for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. I also like to try to fit in some athletic greens at this point. I'm experimenting with that as a new supplement, and I've been enjoying it. It's actually not too bad tasting, but I did learn the hard way that I really can't drink it at my desk because I spilled it all over my desk. And if you have ever spilled athletic greens, oh my God, is that a pain in the ass to clean up. So I'll usually make my athletic greens, I'll usually chug my athletic greens to avoid spilling it everywhere, and then I'll usually make myself some breakfast. My breakfast has been varying so much. I actually recently got a Lumen. I've been making all sorts of like health investments lately. TBD on how they will all turn out. I will report back and let me know down below if you are interested in hearing more about the Lumen. But I've been experimenting with how my body reacts to different types of foods. That is something that's very, very new. At this point in my day, this is really the getting into the work part of my day. And the self-care and stress management routines are a little bit dependent on the day and my schedule. If I have a lot of meetings that require a lot of me, I try not to take them while standing. While I'm doing brainstorming, writing, editing, other computer work, I consider firing up the walking treadmill and walking while working at the same time. I'm still getting used to this, so I don't walk particularly fast on my treadmill. But if I'm super immersed in what I'm doing, I might end up walking for like an hour, which is kind of cool. I also have noticed that for myself, I'm really liking making lunch my heavier meal of the day. I'm finding that I tend to feel very weighed down when I have a heavy meal for dinner. So I've been kind of having lunch be my heavy meal and dinner be something very light and very like veggie based. I've been enjoying a lot of cauliflower substitutions lately, like cauliflower gnocchi and cauliflower crust pizza. Apparently I can't say the word cauliflower. My childhood self would be cringing right now knowing that, but I'm doing it and I'm liking it. And then last but not least, I don't really have any typical anti-stress wind down routine in the evening. It's something I want to create. I'm just kind of not at that point yet. I am not opposed to some good Netflix watching, but perhaps the biggest thing I try to be consistent with is I try to wind down and read some fiction in the evening before I go to bed. Then I fire up the Hatch sleep alarm, which I really like because it has a pre-programmed wind down for bed. It turns on my ambient noises, which I have to sleep with ambient noises. It has a light that kind of slowly but surely decreases in intensity, and then I go to sleep in my 8 sleep. My 8 sleep actually starts to cool my bed down about an hour before bed, so by the time I climb in, it's the exact temperature I want it to be, nice and cool in the summer, and I cannot wait to warm that baby up in the winter. So these are some of the routines that I am doing. These are some of the ways I've been resetting my routines. It is not foolproof by any means. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still getting my feet out from under me, but this is kind of where I'm at. And my goal, ideally, and frankly in the past when I've been really on top of my routines, these are some iteration of this is what I've been doing. It's been very much a morning heavy self-care focus, and in the afternoon and the evening, that's more of where I kind of let myself like let loose, watch some Netflix, go hang out with people, stuff like that. So I try to, if there's anything that I try to do, I try to make sure I'm making space for movement. I try to make sure I'm making space for silence and calm, make sure I'm making space for reflection, and really just trying not to sit too damn much during the day. And in doing those things, I feel like for me personally, it really helps me manage my stress. Like I've mentioned before, I work a lot between my business and my day job. I am hoping to cut down on that sooner rather than later, but I think having these kind of routines can help stave off burnout and really prevent burnout from happening, because in all honesty, perhaps I should be burned out, but I'm not. I don't feel it. I'll occasionally feel tired if I don't sleep well, but again, burnout isn't like a day-to-day thing. That is like an extended period of time where you feel like you are completely crushed by the weight of everything that you have in your life. And if you're not feeling that way, if it's just a day where you're really low, then that's probably just a day where you just need to catch up on sleep. And that's kind of where I've been at. The things I do definitely aren't appropriate for everybody. Everybody doesn't have the kind of flexibility I have. And even then, I don't have as much flexibility as I would like. But that being said, really thinking about burnout and stress prevention as creating a lifestyle for yourself with self-care routines, I think is a really good way to think about things. You can improve your overall well-being and manage your stress and overwhelm by doing these sorts of routines. Is it going to be completely the silver bullet that like ends burnout being an issue for you? Perhaps not. It really depends on the person, but these are some of the things I do for me. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.